Today, we travel to the island nation of Madagascar, where a dramatic political story is unfolding, one that has caught the attention of the entire continent. Imagine this. Soldiers standing guard under the bright southern sun, crowds gathered in the capital city of Antananarivo, and a man in military uniform raising his right hand to take an oath. That man is Colonel Randrianirina, a name that just a few weeks ago many outside the army had never even heard. But now he has become the new president of Madagascar. The path to this moment was not peaceful or planned. It was shaped by frustration, anger, and months of growing tension that finally exploded into the streets. People had been protesting, calling for change, calling for leadership that listens. The old president, Andry Rajoelina, once seen as a symbol of youth and modern politics, suddenly became a target of public anger. Rising food prices, unemployment, and corruption had pushed citizens to their limits. At first, it seemed like just another wave of demonstrations. But then something changed. The military joined the people. Soldiers who were supposed to guard the system instead decided to stand with the protesters. The balance of power shifted overnight. Within days, reports emerged that the president had fled the country, boarding a private jet in the middle of the night. By morning, his palace stood empty, and the army had taken charge of the state. When the sun rose over Antananarivo the next morning, a new chapter had begun. People filled the streets with cheers, singing national songs, waving flags. For many, it felt like the beginning of hope. Others, however, whispered with fear, what happens when power comes from the military and not the ballot box? A few days later, the world saw the image that is now on every front page. Colonel Randrianirina, hand on his heart, being sworn in as president. The ceremony was short but powerful. Soldiers saluted, crowds clapped, and the new leader promised to rebuild the nation. We will restore peace, unity, and jobs, he said.
Le jour d'aujourd'hui marque un tournant historique pour notre pays, avec un peuple en effervescence, mu par la volonté du changement et par l'amour profond de sa patrie. Nous ouvrons avec allégresse un nouveau chapitre de la vie nationale. Cette jeunesse, victime d'injustice, de pillage de ses ressources et du détournement des biens publics, composée majoritairement de la génération Z, soutenue par l'ensemble des citoyens malagasy, est descendue dans les rues pour réclamer la refondation nationale et la résolution des problèmes socio-économiques récurrents dans le pays, notamment la coupure incessante d'eau et d'électricité. Malheureusement, en réponse à ces revendications, le régime autoritaire qui a plongé notre peuple dans l'obscurité pendant des années a joué la carte de la violence, de la brutalité et de la violation flagrante des droits de l'homme, plus particulièrement du droit de manifester pacifiquement, un droit de manifester, un droit pourtant reconnu, protégé par la Constitution.
His words sounded confident, almost like a promise of rebirth. Yet beneath the applause, there were quiet questions. Can a man who rose through the ranks of the army truly lead a democratic government? Will he hand power back to the people when the time comes? Or will this be another story of a soldier who never lets go? Across Africa, leaders and citizens alike are paying attention. From Abuja to Nairobi, from Lusaka to Dakar, conversations are growing about what Madagascar's change means for the continent. In West Africa, where coups have become almost routine, some see Madagascar's event as part of a larger African wave, one where the military steps in whenever politicians fail. In East and Southern Africa, the reactions are mixed. Some call it a warning. Others call it a reflection of people's exhaustion. Across social media, young Africans are debating, is this democracy breaking down or is it being reborn in a new form? And perhaps the bigger question, why does this keep happening in Africa? Why do citizens end up celebrating soldiers instead of statesmen? These are questions with no easy answers, but they reveal something deep about the state of leadership on our continent. Back in Madagascar, the reality is settling in. The economy is under strain, prices are high, jobs are few, and investors are nervous. Reuters reported that international agencies are watching closely, with warnings that Madagascar's economy could suffer if stability doesn't return soon. The country's credit rating is under review, which means it could lose access to international funds. Foreign aid, which Madagascar relies on for many social programs, is being reconsidered by donors. Yet on the streets, people are still celebrating. They say anything is better than the old system. "We just want change," a young student told reporters. "We've been patient for too long." It's a statement you can hear echoed across Africa, in Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Sudan, a call for change, fairness, and real opportunity. The new president says his plan is simple: 2 years of transition, then elections. He promises a new constitution, better management of national resources, and more opportunities for the youth. But history tells us in Africa such promises are easier made than kept. Many leaders before him have promised to hand back power and then change their minds. So, the world is waiting. The African Union has said it will support a peaceful transition, but has reminded the new president that the army's job is not to rule, but to protect the people. Still, for now, the streets are calm, shops are reopening, people are returning to work, and a fragile sense of normal life is returning. Yet beneath the calm lies uncertainty, the kind of uncertainty that only time can solve. In the countryside, far from the capital, the story feels different. Farmers in small villages are asking if the new government will help them with seeds, roads, and markets. Mothers are wondering if food prices will finally come down. And teachers who have gone months without proper pay are waiting for the promises to turn into action. One radio journalist described the mood as hopeful but cautious. It's the same feeling many Africans share when new leaders rise, that quiet voice in the heart that says, maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time change will truly come. Meanwhile, the international community is reacting with mixed feelings. France, Madagascar's former colonial ruler, has expressed concern, but also said it is ready to work with the new government if it commits to democracy. The European Union has called for calm. The African Union has sent a delegation to assess the situation. Western analysts are watching closely because what happens in Madagascar could influence the region. If the new president succeeds in bringing stability and growth, other countries may follow his model. But if things go wrong, if democracy collapses, or if violence returns, it could send a negative message across the continent. There's also a deeper story here, one that speaks to the African experience. For decades, Africa's biggest challenge has not just been poverty or conflict, but leadership. We have had leaders who start with good intentions but end up trapped by power. We have systems that reward loyalty instead of honesty. And yet, we have millions of young Africans who are hungry for change, who want to build nations that are fair, free, and full of opportunity. The Madagascar story is not just about one island. It's about Africa's search for leadership that truly serves the people. Imagine for a moment the scene in the capital as the new president took his oath. The crowd waving flags, singing the national anthem, the soldiers standing tall, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something new. Then imagine a mother watching from her small house, listening on the radio, hoping that her children will finally have a better future. These are the faces of hope. They remind us that leadership is not just about power, it's about people. As the sun sets over Madagascar tonight, no one knows what the next months will bring. Will the new president fulfill his promises? Will the army keep its word and allow free elections? Will the economy recover? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the people have spoken. They have demanded change. And in that demand lies a message for all of Africa. A message that says the age of blind loyalty is ending and the era of accountability must begin. So, as Africa watches Madagascar, we must also look within. Each African nation must ask itself, are we giving power to leaders who serve or leaders who take? Are we building systems that listen or systems that silence? Are we shaping a continent that depends on aid or one that stands tall on its own strength? These are the real questions behind the headlines. Because what is happening in Madagascar today could happen anywhere tomorrow. At Afric Vision, we believe in telling these stories not just of politics, but of people, hope, and the dream of an Africa that owns its future. As we follow Madagascar's new path, we remember that every nation deserves leaders who listen, economies that include, and futures that inspire. So, stay with us, subscribe, share, and let's keep watching Africa's story unfold together as one voice, one continent, one vision.